Okay, good afternoon. I show 1:30 on my clock, so we'll go ahead and get started. My name is Justin Faulkner. I'm the chair of Indiana's Interstate Compact Council, and I welcome everyone to today's meeting. Thank you for taking time to attend. Thank you to anybody who might be watching on the live stream. At this time, the first substantive item on the agenda is review and approval of the minutes from our June 26, 2020 meeting. Those were sent out a little bit in advance by April, so I hope the members have had a chance to look through those. If there's any recommendations on edits or corrections to them, I'd be happy to entertain those. Otherwise, I would take a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Thank you, Laura. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Judge. It's been a motion and a second. Any discussion on the minutes? Any changes or edits we need to make? If not, all in favor say aye.
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 Great. Any nays? Perfect, thank you. Minutes are approved, and we'll move on to the adult compact update. I think we have a couple staff who are going to present through this, and we'll start with the COVID-19 response. And I believe April, we'll start with you.
Thank you, Justin. For the interstate incoming, on the state level, we continue to work with states with our communication and collaboration. A lot of states are still on restrictions due to COVID, and they're doing their hearings on their offenders virtually. So those states who are doing virtual hearings, they'll reach out to us and ask us if it's okay for them to send blank documents with their compact information. Our compact people will sign those documents and we'll submit them back to them via compact action request, so they can have their signed documentation. Also, on the local level, we're still working with our people on how to do home visits to ensure that we're meeting compliance with our IKS rules. We're still working with the Sheriff's Department, and they're doing welfare checks for people who have to have home visits done for absconders. And then also for incoming, when they're doing address verification to ensure that the people say they live there or their family members live there and willing to support them. And those people who have restrictions on home visits, they'll drive out to the address and they're doing virtual visits to ensure that the people still live there and they validate their addresses that way. And we are also working on increasing our sanctionings through Indiana. So for technical violations, which would typically send the offender back to their state, we're having those violations held in our court. They'll assign them an artificial cause number, and they'll look for an Indiana judge, and then they will sanction them how they would their own offenders. And they'll continue supervision here and notify the sending state of those sanctions that were imposed.
Thanks, April. Any questions for April on the incoming updates or COVID response? Taran, anything on the outgoing?
No real changes since last meeting. We are continuing to make sure that we're only sending cases out that absolutely have to go out. Discretionary cases are being permitted, but again, those are only for those cases that absolutely must go out. We are not allowing, as we do for incoming, for other states have different needs than we do, but we are not one of the states allowing blank documents to be submitted out. We are requiring that everyone complete full and complete packets before we send any transfer out of state. We are collecting more of the transfer application fee at this time as well. Previously, probably like around March or April, we didn't suspend the fee, but we did suspend the requirement to collect the fee before the transfer was submitted, which would get people out of the state faster if they were mandatory and needed to get back home. But now I'm finding that people are submitting their transfer application fee right up front like we were doing before the pandemic hit. So as of right now, we have no real changes since the last meeting.
Thank you. If there's no questions on that update, then Taran, I think are you up for training too?
So we have no formal training set at this time. The only real training that I find I'm doing on the adult side, we have some high turnover on our local level. People are retiring or moving on to different agencies, so we're having to train those new officers, which isn't anything new, just the rate of change has increased. So as far as training on new rules, we haven't had to do much of that. I'm finding officers are falling in line with those new rules. They're doing an amazing job with it. They've taken the initiative. Since we weren't able to have our justice services meeting in person, we were relying on them to take the initiative to learn and read those rules and to contact us if necessary. And we've had no problems on that front.
Thank you. Any questions or issues with that from the council? If not, we'll move on to compliance for adult. And April, I think that's you again.
We're continuing to meet and exceed our compliance at the state level and nationally. We are reminding people that they have to continue to submit their notice of arrival and notice of departures. That's always something that sometimes they forget when the paperwork is moving faster than them. So the only concern, which is really not a concern, but the area that we have to remind them the most is when offenders are leaving and coming, that they need to submit their notice of arrivals or notice of departures.
Any questions from anyone on that? Thanks. Taran, you're on the warrant timelines presentation.
Yes, the Rules Committee recently formed a subgroup, a work group on warrants. And what we're doing is attempting to create a nationwide standard, a uniform standard on warrants through the Interstate Compact. Currently, how warrants are set up, we have about 3 different timeframes where warrants can be issued. Some must be issued immediately, some must be issued within 10 days, some must be issued within 30 days, just depending on the circumstance for each warrant issue. What the work group is trying to do is create a standard where we would have one time frame for any type of warrant issued in the Adult Interstate Compact. What the work group is leaning toward right now is a 15-day time frame for any warrant that is required should be issued. And what that means is it must be issued as a nationwide extradition with no bond entered into NCIC within 15 days of the triggering event. So we're looking at what states need to do to comply with that, because there are many states who are saying that they would have trouble complying with this obligation if the Rules Committee takes the recommendation of the work group and proceeds forward with this. So for our state, we would need to look at what is it that we need to do to comply and understand that as the Interstate Compact, it is our job to make sure we comply with these rules. And they were heavily leaning on state councils to make sure that any rule adopted regarding timeframes and warrants, state councils have to be active in developing training and reaching out to our stakeholders to understand what they need to comply with this or any new rule. We have to develop and have procedures to meet the timeframes. We have rules in place, and we're trying to, like I said, we're trying to change all rules regarding warrants to have a unified standard, but we need to understand that there are some states, in Indiana, we do have some counties, but this would be a problem. 15 days, not many counties, but there are some that 15 days may be a problem for them, and we would just need to work with them and find out what their weaknesses are and try to help them get past that. We need to think past COVID, because a lot of states right now, they're still in survival mode. So we're trying to think past that and understand that for right now, we will have issues, but beyond this, we need to think of a remedy that would be sustainable for most states. And then we would also have to update we would have to update our ICOT system, which is our offender tracking system, our database for our cases. But that, right now, what we're trying to do is figure out a time frame, which again, we're leaning toward 15 days that most states can comply with. And in Indiana, we need to start thinking about how we can assist those counties that would have this problem.
Any questions on that from anyone? Mary Kay?
Yes, Justin, I'll just add a couple things. Taran and I are pretty involved in this just because we're both members of the Rules Committee. And the Rules Committee took this issue up as a result of some discussion that happened in the 2019 annual business meeting, where there was an attempt with just one rule to make a change to a time frame and to actually put more substance to a time frame that was stated in the rule, to give people better direction or clear direction about what the expectation was. And so when Taran mentioned that there are a variety of different timeframes, all the way to as soon as possible, immediately, all the way up to 30 days, I think you can all appreciate that sometimes these rules were developed kind of in isolation. So that is, when you have one rule that's adopted 1 year and then 10 years later you adopt another one and then you amend it, that's kind of what leads to this difference in timeframes. In addition to the time frame noted is typically a reflection of the severity of the reason for which the warrant is being issued. And so for training purposes, for compliance purposes, and review purposes, and just to make sure everybody's on the same page, that's the basis for wanting to do this. First and foremost, public safety being the number one. And the feedback that we received from some of the regions, we're in the Midwest region, for the Interstate Compact, the feedback that we got from some of the regions is concerns about being able to process these warrants. And I think what we need to do as the Rules Committee, and Taran's a member of that work group, is to really delve into the reasons for those concerns. We have certainly had issues on the probation side, sometimes getting warrants issued, but sometimes that's more of a matter of education versus a processing issue. And so we want to distinguish between the cases where it is because of volume or staffing, not possible logistically to get a warrant processed in 15 days versus there is some disagreement or some concern on the part of the issuing entity about whether or not a warrant must be issued or should be issued. So those are clearly two separate issues. And I think probably my sense is that the concerns really arise from the latter, where we really have to spend some time working with a local jurisdiction to help them understand that a warrant is required as opposed to you can't just terminate probation, for example, in certain situations. So I think that we're trying to really delve into what some of those issues are, and help people understand that at any given time, any state for any particular case could fall out of compliance. And if someone's not in compliance for a particular case, that's why we work together as state councils. That's why we work together as state offices to help kind of shore up everyone, because everyone stumbles a little bit every once in a while. But in the interest of public safety, that's really where the discussion lies, is how can we condense those timeframes, and not for the purpose of going on any kind of making any attempts to seek out states or jurisdictions that can't comply on a single case, but we're just looking for substantial compliance across all or most cases. So that's really the objective, and we're anticipating that this could take a little while. The next rule revision year is 2021, so that's next year. We're thinking that it may take a little bit longer than that. We're willing to take our time so that we can get this right, so that we can get feedback from all of the regions. So we will keep you posted on that.
Thank you. Anything for Mary Kay or Taran on that, on the warrant timelines? Taran, did you have anything else you wanted to?
Nope, that's all.
Okay. Mary Kay, anything else under the additional updates?
Yes, thank you. Just a couple of things. The adult side held their annual business meeting last week, and that was held virtually. We had anticipated that it would be in person, but like all the other meetings, they transitioned it to a virtual meeting within a couple months prior to the ABM. A couple of highlights from that meeting. I think I mentioned before at our previous council meeting that there had been some discussion that the national office was going to be looking at reducing the state's members' dues for fiscal year 2022. That was approved at the annual business meeting. So Indiana's dues will be reduced by 30% for FY 2022. And we really appreciate the willingness of the national office to consider the financial positions that many of our states are going to be in post-pandemic.
So is that just a COVID-driven reduction? It's not based on, it's not going to last past that?
That is correct. It is a COVID one-time reduction in dues. And we don't know that we're going to be seeing that on the juvenile side of things at the moment. It's just on the adult side of things.
Okay.
We did distribute a copy of the annual report with your meeting materials. I wanted to highlight a couple of items in the annual report. There is some discussion about looking at race and equity issues surrounding some of the compact decisions for violations, reporting instructions, and approvals. So they provide in the annual report a national snapshot of what those rates and percentages are for various groups. We are able to run a report like that for Indiana. So I think what we can do is our office with court services can run a report for the Compact Council to take a look at next time to see where our numbers are and see how consistent we are with the national level data. As noted in the annual report, there is going to be ongoing review of warrants. So in addition to the time frame that Taryn was mentioning and trying to get some consistency in the rules on timeframes, we also want to look at some of the issues that states are struggling with generally on compliance. So that will continue in the upcoming year. And then related to the information that Taryn and April reported on compliance, back in March of this year, there were 43 states that had indicated they had placed some restrictions on their compact activities related to COVID. Indiana was not one of them. We never put any restrictions in place in Indiana. Our compact team on the DOC and probation side really worked hard to work with local jurisdictions. So on March 28th, there were 43 states that had restrictions, and by June 11th, that had been reduced to 26 states. So I'm guessing that now that we're even further past June, there are probably even fewer states that have restrictions in place. And then finally, for our 2019 numbers, our annual report numbers for fiscal year 2020, Indiana reported incoming offenders, about 2,900 incoming offenders, about 2,300 outgoing offenders, and that's both combined with probation and parole, and then for a total population of about 5,200 offenders coming in and out of the state of Indiana, just to give you a sense for what our volume looks like. And I would encourage you to take a look at this report. It is interesting just to kind of see all the activities. It's a pretty easy read. And again, as I said, we will provide some information on our transfer and acceptance rates for the council at the next meeting. So that's all I have.
Mary Kay, just on the dues reduction, do you know about what that 30%, what that equates to?
Probably close to about $10,000. Our annual dues on the adult side are about $30,000.
Okay. Is that come out of our budget as the court, or is that split amongst state agencies? Do you know?
We actually get an appropriation for Interstate Compact, and our dues come out of that.
Okay.
So it is,
Thank you.
it is fair savings. Actually, the last thing that I will report is that the Commission for Improving the Status of Children is engaging with the Council of State Governments in a review of the juvenile justice system. And that is being led through the commission. Representative McNamara and Senator Kreider are taking the lead on that. And I spoke with Julie Whitman from our office about the possibility of providing some information about juvenile interstate compact on runaways and then transfers of those kids going through that system. So I am expecting that the Council of State Governments may be talking to some of our staff, in particular NITA, on some of the juvenile compact matters and how that may be impacted by any changes in the code. And that's all that I have.
Thanks. If nobody has any questions on the adult compact update, we'll move on to the juvenile. And I do want to note, looks like we've been joined by Director Terry Stignan, Director of Indiana's Department of Child Services. Welcome, Director. And we'll move on to the juvenile compact update. And I think Nita, you have all these topics, don't you? So you can go ahead and just take it.
Thank you. With the Interstate Compact day-to-day operations being on a web-based platform, the use of technology is common for all of the users in all of the states. So when COVID-19 took heart to the states, the type of enhancements and workarounds that we had to do was taken in a positive way. In fact, it created a greater camaraderie between the states because we were all in the same situation. We had the same type of circumstances that dealt with our offenders. So the positive attitudes, the camaraderie actually made things better, actually helped each of the states, especially Indiana, with meeting compliance the type of things that we have to do our workarounds with technology has been a key player of that. Instead of complaining about the situation we're in, I find that not just our local offices, but even on the state level, everyone's asking what's next? What do we do? What have you done to work around this problem? So we've all shared our ideas and concerns. And if we didn't have a solution or another state didn't have a solution, we put our heads together nationwide and have been really been able to come together and keep things rolling, not just for our state, but across the nation. So with that, it increases our compliance. Not only has it increased our compliance, but we've actually have exceeded some of the expectations considering we're under a pandemic. The good thing about the use of technology and our alternative methods, it has opened the eyes and the scope of a way we do things locally, where we often would have in-person home evaluations. Our locals have become accustomed to using technology, video conferences, Zoom, to not just hold their quarterly progress meetings with offenders, but in also doing their investigations, where they're actually signing documents virtually. They are emailing the documents and using Adobe Sign or DocuSign, and they're having their meetings in front of the offenders, the youth offenders, in person via the Zoom, and they're actually being able to witness their signatures. So that's one of the ways or avenues that we've been creative in continuing to have these mandatory meetings with the juveniles using the technology. Additionally, enlisting the help of local law enforcement, where that may not have been the case before, where a local officer cannot make an in-person home visit. They can actually drive to the home, or they can have a courtesy check with local law enforcement agents who are willing to assist. So even with law enforcement, we've seen a greater camaraderie just because we all have areas that cross one another, and in one way, form or fashion, we need the assistance of each other. So the overall takeaway has been positive. And even after the pandemic has ended, some of these procedures will continue on in the future. They're time saving, cost saving. So it's been a plus overall for Indiana.
Thanks, Nita. Any questions from anyone on that before she moves on to a training update? Okay, thank you.
As you know, we are in the development of a new juvenile system called Unity. Unity is about 98% complete in its development. In conjunction with the development of the platform, training is underway for the modules, development of the training modules is under the way. In addition to, while we are completing the project, our local counties are actually being prepared to be inputted into the national system. As the Indiana's coordinator, I have begun to create our user directory. And what that means is anyone that will use the system, have access to the system, or need the system for surveillance of their cases or for management of their probation officers, they will have that access, and we will create the directory instead of importing information from our old system. We discovered that importing that information would give us a false start with bad information. So we decided to do a clean slate, and I am currently in the process of soliciting all of our users, updating our information, and they have currently been loaded. Indiana right now has 157 users loaded out of the 92 counties into the new system. We have about 30 more to get into the system. Once they are loaded into the system, a module will be released to them to get the overview of the new system. That platform, the new LMS, Learning Management System, is the system that we will use to now train our local officers as well as the state. What's good about this platform is that each person that is registered into the system will automatically get training loaded onto their personalized account whenever that training becomes available. So the need to have to seek out and look for training will not be necessary. That information will be provided to them automatically. The good thing about this new system, as it's tied to Unity, our main platform, is that the local state offices can manage users' training more appropriately. We can see how often they are training, how well they are progressing in that training, and we can see what counties will need further and additional training. So we're excited about the new LMS system. It helps us to also manage our compliance. It's updated real time. Our old system, JIDS, was not updated real time. It was updated weekly. And even with the weekly updates, some of the system's information was not always accurate or appropriate to the type of reporting that we needed to do. The system calculated some of its reports based on the forms that were submitted. If a person did not submit their information on the correct form, then our statistics and data may not have been accurate, which was one of the reasons why we saw the need for a new system. So this new system updates more accurately. It updates often and in real time. So I can pull up data as soon as that data changes. And so that's a benefit overall for everyone.
Any questions on that for Nita? If you want, Nita, I don't know if compliance and then the Unity and update and JID's retirement, if they kind of flow into each other or not, but go ahead and take those next three.
Okay. Compliance has been very well for Indiana. Again, technology has boosted the compliance. The use of technology has opened our eyes to how we can operate, and it's actually been a lifesaver to keeping things moving. So with that, again, our compliance is very well. If we've had any trouble areas, it was just a matter of bringing to the attention avenues that can be taken to resolve issues. We've been able to resolve them more expeditiously because of technology. And so again, we sit very well with compliance. The new rollout for Unity, originally Unity was supposed to roll out December 2020. We are still full steam ahead. We are on target, but the rollout date has now been changed to February 2021. The reason for that change is to alleviate rolling out during the holidays. A lot of agencies across the nation have been faced with layoffs, turnover, and so it would not be beneficial to roll it out in December, and everyone decided that rolling it out in February would be the better option. Although we're not rolling out, we are still rolling behind the scenes. So Indiana will be set up for rollout in December. We will be ready to go come February 2021. We will be training. Training modules are released as soon as our user database is complete. Again, we have about 30 users to get into that database. And the deadline for having all the users in the database is October the 2nd. It has been extended for 2 weeks, but Indiana will be rolling out by Monday of next week for our user database. So our users will start to get the modules about 3 weeks in advance. And our plan is to keep Indiana ahead of the game so that by the time the system rolls out, we will be prepared. Our entire state will be trained and we will be ready to go. JIDS was set to retire December along with the introduction of the Unity system. Although it will retire to our local users, each state will have a 1-year extended access to the system that will allow any county that does not have an alternative system as a backup to their files that were submitted inside of JIDS, that gives them the opportunity to still have access to those cases. Although they will not be able to personally access the cases, we have one designated user at the state level that will be able to manage any type of cases the counties may need to look at or have access to. So we get an additional 1 year, even though the system will retire itself, to access those cases.
Any questions for Nita on that? Was that everything on the JID's retirement? Sorry, Nita.
Yes.
Any questions for that or the juvenile update? Nita, if it's possible, or Mary Kay, maybe for one of the future meetings, if there's a way to do it that's secure, I don't know how it presents or what we'd be looking at. You could show us what Unity looks like as it gets rolled out.
Absolutely.
I wouldn't mind seeing that. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Mary Kay. You have the access update for IOCS, and I believe if you remember or you looked in the minutes, the last meeting we talked about IOCS writing a letter to the state police trying to get NCIC access. Mary Kay was going to look into that, and that's what you've got the update on?
Yes, sir. So after the last meeting, Senator Sandlin sent me contact at the state IDAC section just to get a little bit more information about what may be required. And I was able to speak with a couple of individuals over there who actually were very familiar with the Interstate Compact Council and the work of the council and the Interstate Compact process, so that's very helpful. They gave me some detailed information about the application that the Office of Court Services would need to submit to the state police requesting access. So there are a couple of things that we would have to demonstrate compliance with, that our organization is involved in the administration of justice, and there's some other criteria, the administration of criminal justice as defined under federal statutes, which includes a fair number of activities, including detection, apprehension, detention, pretrial release, post-trial release, prosecution, adjudication, supervision, and rehabilitation of criminal offenders. But there's some additional criteria that have to be met in order for state police to grant access. So our office will be drafting a letter, and I would like to maybe engage some assistance and support, perhaps Chris from IPAC, and maybe even from the Sheriff's Association as we put that letter together. I think the more eyes we have on it, hopefully the more successful, or the likelihood that our application will be successful. So what I would propose, Justin, is if our staff does a first draft of that letter and circulates that to IPAC and the Sheriff's Association. I know Steve was not able to be on the call today, but we can communicate that with him and see if his team would be willing to take a look at that. If IDAC's access is granted to our office, they thought that the approval would come pretty quickly. There would be a training requirement for our staff who are administering it, but they did not see any concern about getting that done relatively quickly to help us with what we need to do. And that's all I have.
Any questions on that, Chris? I don't want to presume that you'd be willing to help Mary Kay on that, but I'd certainly appreciate it if you could.
Yes, absolutely. Glad to help any way we can.
Sorry, April, our staff person managing this Zoom, had just asked me to let folks know that our captioner was getting some feedback. So if you're not talking, to mute yourself. And I looked at the screen and I was the only one not muted. So sorry. That's on me. Anything else on that, Mary Kay?
No, sir.
Okay. Anybody have any questions or issues or concerns or a different approach maybe on that? Thanks. Hearing none. Anybody have anything other business for the good of the order? Going once, twice. Thank you. Our next meeting then is December 4th. It's 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock. We are still anticipating having that by Zoom. So April will send out a calendar invite like she did this time to everyone along with the meeting materials. And I'm sure I will see most of you in other capacities in between now and then. So I'll see you then and I'll see you in between. And if there's nothing further from anyone, thank you very much for meeting today. And I would take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Perfect. I don't know that by Robert's Rules of Order we actually have to vote on it, but if anybody's opposed to adjourning, you're going to get kicked from the chat. All right. Thanks, everyone. I'll see you in December.
Thanks.
Thanks.